Welcome to our panel discussion this afternoon. My name is Mary Rita Nelson. I'm currently the president of the League of Women Voters of DeKalb County, Illinois. I would like first to say that the League is interested in studying this topic. We do not have a position one way or the other. We're seeking more information. So today we have two citizens familiar with the city clerk's position, and we hope to learn more about their views. I want to welcome Paul Callighan, a member of the board of the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation and resident of DeKalb, who's also the chair of a private committee that's been established by local citizens to represent the four position. I would also like to welcome Lynn Fazekas, who's a former DeKalb City Clerk. She is also a League of Women Voters member. She will speak to represent the against position. There was a problem with the recording of this, and you're going to come in on Paul will have already started his statement. Paul Callighan will have already started his statement.
Election rule. The appointment process will foster job accountability and meeting performance standards by the city clerk, which are absent under the elected system. High quality service delivery and good governance should be the standard for city clerk operations in DeKalb. A responsible person chosen through the appointment process is the way to make this happen, and this step begins with a yes vote for an appointed city clerk. Thank you.
Would you tell us some of your background and why you are in favor of an elected city clerk?
Yes, and thank you for having me. I've lived and worked in DeKalb County, mostly in the city of DeKalb, for almost 40 years. I'm an NIU graduate with a BA in psychology, and I actually next week, the 5th of November, will mark 19 years as the owner of the City Barb's blog, which is a local issues blog. And I also administer the City Barb's blog group on Facebook. I've also worked on the inside of City Hall, as you indicated, Mary. I first, under Mayor Frank Van Buren, I was on the Environmental Commission, the Citizens Environmental Commission of the city. And as you indicated, I was city clerk. I was appointed to complete a term, and that appointment was made in August of 2018, and I did finish out that term. It ended in May of 2021. If I could make one little personal comment here to Paul. Paul, I really want to tell you how much I appreciate your service on the city's Finance Advisory Committee. Thank you very much. I actually agree with Paul on just about every single thing he said. DeKalb does deserve better. Voting is a precious right. And in fact, the only major area I disagree with him is the position that he's taken, the conclusion that he's come to. So I'd like to start with more of the general reasons to support an elected clerk. That is my position. I want to vote no to an appointed clerk in this referendum. And there are general reasons for that support, and also DeKalb as a special case. So the elected clerk gives us a little separation between the legislative branch, which makes the policy, and the executive, who carries out the policy. The clerk is the process person, checking that things are done right, because it's not just about efficiency. You'd like efficiency if you can get it. You'd like professionalism, of course, of all kinds, good attendance, just being on the ball. But to me, the most important thing is getting it right. And I think a lot of times that doesn't happen if you don't have an elected clerk. And yes, I'll get into more detail with that. So the most important factor here is that the elected clerk answers to the voters, not directly to anyone inside government. So we talk about checks and balances. What does it mean here? Well, it means that the elected city clerk isn't sitting right next to her boss in a closed session and observing that maybe that boss is violating the Open Meetings Act. So I would ask, if you had an elected clerk who's not answering to anybody inside that meeting, but only to her oath of office and her responsibility to the people that she's serving, who's going to be more likely to point out that error in the Open Meetings Act? I think it's going to be the person who can't get fired. I think also there's more transparency with an elected clerk. The reason is that if we look at this terrible turnover problem that we've had in the clerk's office, if it was an appointed clerk, I think it's an open question as to whether anybody would know. So I'm going to give you an example here, and that is that there used to be an elected treasurer, and then there was an appointed treasurer. Now there's no treasurer. I don't really care for that sequence of events, and there is a real world issue with that, and that issue is that the finance department, in fact, has often gone without the person who is, by city policy, the financial director, and we've gone without finance directors, and we have been going without finance directors who are actually qualified. Now, so if that finance director were elected, I think we'd know a little bit more about that, and I think we'd be a little bit more concerned about what's going on in that office. That's not to take away anything from the qualified, fully qualified, and very good finance director that we did have for, I think, a little bit over a year recently. Another thing that I know the city is talking, the city's stance is talking about the position of clerk, any clerk, being ministerial, and that is true. If we're using the definition, that means that the duties have to be done, and have to be done one way with zero discretion. But that also depends on the human being in that office. Is that minister understanding their duty? Are they understanding their oath of office? Are they committed to that office? I think that the prime example here, something that didn't happen too long ago, would have been our duly elected Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, who had a ministerial duty with certifying the electoral votes. He was pressured to do something else, and he might have done something else if he were a different person in that spot. So right person, right thing happened. A more local example of ministerial duties is the elections office, election duties, and things like the handling of sealed bids. So those are, yeah, please don't minimize the importance of the ministerial duties and the person acting as minister in those instances. It's very important. The city is also saying that that they can achieve a higher level of professionalism and stability. You know, this lack of professionalism and stability only happened after the last clerk referendum. The last clerk referendum was in 2012. DeKalb voters voted overwhelmingly by more than 70% to retain the elected clerk, but the city didn't really accept those results. It didn't honor those results. It tried to turn it into kind of a part-time and, well, just some examples here. Turnover of clerks was not an issue before that 2012 election. That's the only reason I'm even bringing it up. Because only 3 elected clerks served to the people of DeKalb from 1977 to 2012. But following the 2012 election, we've had 9 clerks to date. Also, professionalism was not an issue before the referendum. Full-time clerks and deputies were trained. They were trained, they got statewide certification, and they ran a full-service, full-time clerk's office that was the first stop for people doing business with the city. And it's not like that now. You don't know who to go and see. So let's compare and contrast. Okay, so before that referendum, full-time compensation was paid. A typical full-time salary with benefits for the elected clerk. After that referendum, compensation was cut down to $5,000 a year. That's not a professional salary. Professional training and statewide certification was typical before the referendum. All clerks and deputies were working towards that. But after the referendum, let's see, the last registered and certified clerk that we had resigned in 2014. The last clerk we elected asked for the training not long after he was elected. And he was not only turned down, but he was insulted. And I'm going to put this forward because I'm sure I'm still sitting on the email where he was told that he was evaluated as incapable of learning, and therefore he would never get the training. Honestly, I will find that email for you if you want it. Which brings us to professional conduct. So the city has always insisted on professional conduct out of its clerks. The city has not always given it. And something very, a happy coincidence happened. The Illinois, this is on track, I promise. The Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Professionalism just this month released a study of bullying in the legal profession. In its report, the commission commented that, quote, because there is now a consensus that children should not be allowed to bully other children in school, it begs the question of why some adults are allowed to bully other adults in the legal profession. So I agree, and I would further argue that we shouldn't tolerate bullying in other types of workplaces, and especially not in any level of government. And yet bullying has been a prominent feature of the city clerk experience in DeKalb since 2014. So using the commission report as a guide, I checked off behaviors that I was subjected to as clerk. There were 4 types, mainly: verbal abuse, cyber abuse, exclusionary tactics, intimidation tactics, including physical intimidation, and at least one search of the clerk's office without my knowledge or consent. And again, for most of these things, there are emails that back this up. Other former DeKalb clerks I know have had the same or similar experiences. It wasn't just me. And as a matter of fact, let me make clear that it's not just one administration that has been, or two, we're talking about, we're going back more than a decade, and every administration since that referendum has been a party to the way the clerk has been treated. One of them, in fact, the same clerk who was our last certified and registered clerk through Municipal Clerks of Illinois, she thought about things a lot after she resigned in 2014, and then went public with her story in 2016 via a letter to the editor that you can still find at the City Barb's blog today. So even someone who clearly was quite professional, in fact, was MCI's Rookie of the Year in, I believe, 2014, and who always thought of herself as a team player, had great respect from the community at large for her previous work as a deputy. And by the way, won with more votes in that election where she was elected city clerk than the then mayor got to win as mayor. So wrapping up here, I hope it goes without saying that the issue with the clerks should be addressed no matter how the clerk referendum works out, both for our own sakes as members of the public and for the people who work at City Hall. You know, this isn't an isolated thing. I see the clerk as kind of the canary in the coal mine for the type of leadership culture that we have. But if voters once again choose the elected clerk, it should be with the understanding that professional compensation, professional training, and a modicum of civility should be restored. So bottom line, I'm suggesting that we stick with our elected clerk because of the more general reasons that I stated before: checks and balances, ministerial duties, the oath of office. But also that we look for candidates who support this for the city elections come spring. And thank you.
Okay, that's a lot. Paul, it's back to you. You got a lot to answer, I think.
Well, I certainly think some of the problems that have come up look at the fact that you need someone who's got a passion for wanting to do the job that does fulfill all of the requirements of a city clerk. And I trust the duly elected officials serving as mayor and city council that they can do that screening. Because I think what has happened in the past, some people have wanted to come in and and certainly take the responsibility seriously, but may not have realized the extent of the work that was involved, may have had other issues that they wanted to address, but aren't really under the responsibilities of the clerk. And so they get distracted between the responsibilities of the clerk's job and perhaps some of their own special concerns. And I think going through the appointment process will bring about candidates that truly do want to make this happen. For example, right now, we are working under a system where there's a recording secretary for the business of the city of DeKalb, and things seem to be working smoothly under that arrangement. I have faith that my elected officials will look out for that and address the problem that we've had with people who either inadvertently get in over their heads or perhaps get misdirected thinking they can have more direct impact through that office than they really have. And if you're going to put your energies into wanting to do something to help the city, this is the way to do it. You would be able to seek out an appointment, and then you have the duly elected people who have been appointed as your representatives taking that responsibility to bring forth a candidate who will have the office open for business, make sure it's professional, and make sure that the business of the city is getting done the way it's supposed to get done.
So we did invite Sycamore to, point us toward people that wanted to address the same issue in Sycamore, and we didn't get a response. But my question is from reading the Chronicle, my understanding is that the Sycamore position would pay, between the clerk and the deputy clerk, it would be over $100,000 a year. Now, a city clerk position now, I'm not sure what an appropriate salary would be because I wasn't familiar with what it was before. But I'm wondering about, as a taxpayer, I'm wondering about money, is if the position can be covered without spending any additional money. It seems like it's, as a taxpayer, I'm just kind of wondering about the money. Is anybody?
Okay.
My understanding that anybody elected now, their salary would be zero. Am I wrong about that? You two both know better.
Right. That is another result of the referendum. They cut the salary down to $5,000. Eventually, somebody got a conscience, and by the time I was in office for my 2.5+ years, the compensation was $8,000 per year. Now that is a fact that the position that there will be zero compensation for the clerk. It's hard. It's very difficult not to think that the city is trying to force the result that they want by taking actions like this. So when it comes to the city clerk's position, used to, at least what I know of, the 35 years that came and went just before the referendum, and clerks were well compensated, but they had a lot of responsibilities over and above the statutory responsibilities. And when we had that, we had excellent candidates. In the 2009 election for clerk, we had 4 candidates. They were all good candidates. In 2013, we had 4 candidates again. Only the compensation had been cut to $5,000, and nobody really knew what that meant. So it's $5,000. Okay. So how many hours are we expected to work? Well, let's do statutory duties only. Okay, what are the statutory duties? If you sent us to the trainings, we would have these answers. DeKalb is, DeKalb needs to answer the question about, are they really interested in getting their clerks professionally trained now, whether elected or appointed? So you get statewide registration, statewide training, statewide registration, statewide certification through municipal clerks of Illinois. This is for everyone. This is for elected and appointed clerks alike. As a matter of fact, any well-trained clerk is going to do the job for you, and it doesn't matter if they are elected or appointed. You can't tell the difference unless you ask them or unless you put them into one of those tricky or pressure-filled situations where they need to make maybe the moral and ethical choices of their life. Okay? So
Paul, do you have anything?
Are they interested in doing the training again? Because the only clerk I know of who has gotten training since 2013 is me. And it was just a fluke, or not a fluke. I found a way to negotiate for that. So I was appointed in August of 2018. And I got to work on going to the training. It's rigorous. You go for a week each year, start early, stay late. You end up feeling like you know so much more. It's invaluable. But I'm the only one. I went in October of 2018, and I'm the only one since 2014 who's gotten any of the statewide professional training by MCI that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And now would be a good time for the city to show those credentials if somebody over there has them. And by the way, the recording secretary does a good job. However, when I was clerk, I had to fire that person for, I really don't want to get into that. That's
okay.
water under
Okay,
the bridge.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
I think,
go ahead, Paul.
didn't mean to interrupt, Lynn, but I think that points out right now where things are so unstable as far as getting a qualified candidate into that post. That's what prompted me to get more active in this particular referendum. Is, we need the drama to end. We need the ability to get a person into that office that passes the litmus test of the requirements of meeting the requirements for the city clerk's office, and is passionate about wanting to do it. And I don't think that's going to happen under the current circumstances unless it's the appointed process. So that's why I feel that the real way to begin moving forward here and making progress is with a yes vote to appoint the clerk.
To add.
Well, to bring this full circle, I as I said before, I agree with Paul on nearly everything that he has said, and but I need to express my concern that if the residents of DeKalb do elect to retain the elected clerk, there is a way forward, and that way forward is professional compensation, professional training, and professional conduct towards the clerk. We had it before, we can have it again. So if the people of DeKalb want that again and vote for retaining an elected clerk, let's make sure the city is ready to honor the results of that referendum this time. Thank you.
Okay. Paul, do you want to finish up with anything?
Yes, I think the only issue there is that to run for city clerk, you don't have to provide any credentials. You don't have to make a case for your commitment to fulfilling the required duties of the office. And that's where I feel we've got an issue to address. And I think the only way to really address that is to go through the appointment process. And I feel that you're not taking away anything from the voters when the appointment process is through the duly elected officials that represent us on the city council. So I would hope people vote yes, and we will see what happens on November 5th.
Well, you know what? I had put off voting because this was the only question on the ballot that I didn't feel I had enough information to make an informed decision. And this has been very, very helpful for me as a voter. It really gave me some things to think about. And so now I'm going to have to think about it and then go out and well, I appreciate you both being here. Thank you so much for giving us some information on this. Paul, I know that the recording was delayed somehow. I heard it kick on when you were in the middle of your statement. So I will come back and do a reintroduction for my part. And add it on. All right.
Okay.
I want to thank everyone. Thank you, everyone. And this will be posted on our Facebook page. This will be posted on our YouTube channel, and it will also be posted on the League of Women Voters of DeKalb County website. Thank you so much for all being here, and
thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Get out and vote. Thank you all.
Thanks for having me.